Under public session, please.
Aye.
Notice of this regular meeting of the Pitman Board of Education was advertised in the South Jersey Times, posted at Borough Hall, a copy thereof delivered to all Pitman schools to be posted and posted on the district's website. Further, notice was posted and filed as required by law, stating that the board would meet in closed session at 7 p.m. in the Pitman High School Media Center. President shall entertain any objections with supporting reasons to the conduct of this meeting on the grounds that it violates the Open Public Meeting Act. I don't have a gavel. That's okay, I'll get her attention. Good evening, guys. So if you could all please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Please join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Mr. Crispin, will you please call roll?
Sure. Mrs. Bolton?
Here.
Mrs. Farrell?
Here.
Mr. Grossman? Here. Mrs. Higbiano?
Here.
Mrs. Pope?
Here.
Mrs. Papalotter?
Here.
And Mrs. Miller.
Here. Great. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr.
All right,
Crispin
very
for
good.
presentation.
Very good. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very, very special board meeting. Just want to take a moment. I've had the opportunity, as most of you know, to be here for the last couple of years, and even as an individual who's had 4 children go through the school district, and I've always had certainly a very, very positive impression of the Pitman School District. But I tell people constantly, you don't know how special this place is until you get inside this place, and it is indeed special. You know, we don't do anything different than anybody else does. We teach children in much the same manner as all the other districts I've had an opportunity to be in. But I think we all recognize that what makes Pitman special is the people in this district. Our teaching professionals and our professionals who support our teachers. And indeed, that really is what separates us as this district of Pitman is very special. And tonight, we get the opportunity to recognize those special individuals. And with that, I'm going to bring forward our principal at our memorial school, Kirsten Miller.
I just want to check, are we doing both at the same time, or are we doing teacher?
Yes.
And okay, great, thank you. Good evening, everyone, thank you so much for coming. I'd like to start with this year's Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Ann Himmer. Come on up, Ann. Ann is a kindergarten teacher at Memorial. Mrs. Himmer has worked in Pitman School District for 19 years and 1 previous year for a total of 20 years that she's been educating children. If you're asked for someone, who do you think is a kindergarten teacher, Ann is the person that you would look to. Her kindness, dedication, compassion, and helpfulness are evident every day. She has a big heart full of empathy and grace. Her willingness to be there for her students, colleagues, and school are admirable. Ann is an inspirational teacher. She works so hard to help students adjust to the transition of kindergarten, challenging students in her class who are received with love and understanding. She always has a smile on her face, and she works to keep everyone happy and learning. It is an amazing experience. She cares for the children like they were her own. And I just was mentioning to my other admin colleagues that I don't think I've seen Ann in a bad mood in the 2 years that I've been here at Pitman. She's always happy, always smiling. Her room is inviting with so much character. Her lessons are not only standards-based, but developmentally appropriate and filled with high interest for her 5- and 6-year-olds. Learning is evident. Students thrive all year, and come May, their classroom community is full of readers, writers, and all-around good citizens. So congratulations to Mrs. Himmer. She is an asset to our building. Okay, next we have Mrs. Cassandra Wright. She is our educational professional of the year. Cassie is part of our child study team as our school psychologist and also the case manager at Memorial School. Mrs. Wright has been with Pitman School District for 8 years. Did I get that correct? 9. We are very lucky to have her at Memorial as our CST case manager. Her knowledge of how to support all students is evident in everything that she does. Cassie is an amazing asset to our child study team and building as a whole. As our building case manager and behavioral specialist, she supports every student on her caseload and many others. Her daily student contact has helped support all students, classroom teachers, and paraprofessionals to provide the best for our students with the most needs. She is hands-on every day. And I joke because last year she was in an office, and this year I moved her out to the floor. So she's right in the middle of everything. And thank goodness, because we need her. You will see her in the car line, the lunchroom, the playground, and any other area we need an extra hand. We can always count on Cassie. She leads meetings with her team with the utmost professionalism and understanding. Her knowledge and needs of students, their families, and staff is immeasurable. Her willingness to provide details and explanations to help families feel comfort in their decision-making is a gift. She keeps us all on the same page as we navigate the best for our programming here in Pitman School District. Congratulations.
To introduce our recipients from the Pitman Elementary School, Principal Carol Mason.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Mr. Morris and myself, we are proud to announce Pitman Elementary School's Teacher of the Year for the 22-23 school year, 23-24 school year. Mrs. Kathy Jacobo. Mrs. Jacobo has been in the district for 15 years, serving students and families in grades pre-K through 12. Currently, Mrs. Jacobo serves as the district ELL teacher to about 17 students, as well as the Spanish instructor to all 75 sixth graders. To share some of her colleagues' sentiments, here's what they said. Kathy is exceptionally skilled as an educator in that she possesses a variety of certificates, which include elementary to high school English, Spanish, ESL, bicultural education, and general education K-8. She utilizes her qualifications daily to serve many students. With regards to leadership and innovation inside and outside of the classroom, you can visit the school's social media pages to see Mrs. Jacobo and the many families of our ESL students and members of the community pictured as they participate in the Success for All family meetings. Mrs. Jacobo invites special guest speakers to talk with parents and students about various topics and opportunities for them in the community. She lines up both in-school and out-of-school resources to help all families. Each student that Kathy serves requires a unique and individual education. We often rely on her to translate during very important meetings. The respect that the parents and students have for Mrs. Jacobo is immeasurable. We all know Kathy wears many hats. She gives freely of her time and talents, and she represents what is right in education. She is very well deserving of our Teacher of the Year award. And congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I would now like to bring up Mr. Morris for our SB award.
Thank you, Mrs. Mason. Thank you to the Board of Education for this privilege, and congratulations to all the winners. It's my privilege to invite Ms. Kehoe up. Now for our chief staff. I've been lucky enough to have met Ms. Kehoe in a classroom far, far away. And was also lucky enough to be able to steal her from a good friend to come back and work for us. So With those two things, I will share these kind words that folks had to say in her nominations. Ms. Keogh currently serves as an instructional aide in the 5th grade setting at the Pitman Elementary School. Hannah is extremely professional at work. She arrives early, adjusts to changes in her day as needed when pulled to fill in for other positions almost on the daily basis. Ms. Keogh has established positive relationships with her students. Hannah is always one step ahead of me and never needs redirection, especially when it comes to the lunchroom. And often she reads my mind by the time I poke my head into the 5th grade classroom in the morning. Also, having Hannah in your classroom is like having an extra teacher. She is knowledgeable of the curriculum and is able to jump in at any moment. She has wonderful relationships with the kids while also having firm expectations for the behavior. Because of this, Ms. Keogh is well respected by her students. And finally, Ms. Keogh is often pulled away, back to the same thing, is pulled away from her classroom responsibilities to cover as a substitute teacher. She does this with grace and kindness, always doing what needs to be done for the benefit of everyone in the building. As you can see, Ms. Keogh is extremely deserving of the ESPY Award and also extremely dedicated to Pitman and the students that we serve. So congratulations.
And from Pitman Junior Senior High School, our principal, Dr. Sherry Lombardo, Mrs. Kristen Storr.
Good evening, everyone. I want to call up our Teacher of the Year, Mr. Rob DeTizio. But you really have a name change this year because the kids only call him Tiz now. So there's no Mr., it's just Tiz. Mr. DeTizio currently teaches 8th grade social studies as well as college and career readiness and Media 1 at Pitman Junior Senior High School. I have had the pleasure of working with Mr. DeTizio for the past 9 years, and truthfully, I don't know what we would do without him. Mr. DeTizio is a relationship builder who finds ways to make difficult topics relevant and tangible. When I'm in his classroom, the passion and joy is just palpable. Since I've been principal, Mr. DeTizio has been a part of the school's greatest successes, always ready to lend a hand or create something new for our students. The students gave Mr. DeTizio the ultimate compliment, and that's saying a lot because it's hard to get middle school kids to talk. They said, Ms. Stewart, Mr. DeTizio is a rite of passage. We all just wait in line so we can get him in 8th grade. And then I was thinking about this. We had a dress like a student, dress like a teacher day, and 50% of the boys in 8th grade dressed like Rob, even drawing on like pencil beards. You're not really working with that tonight. It was crazy. They all got out of their cars and they lined up, and he's at door duty, and next thing I turn around, there's 12 kids next to him look just like him. Running shoes, chinos, they grew the beard on. So even with this challenging year, moving from the middle school into a junior high, Mr. DeTizio found ways to build community and took on positions that were left vacant from staff cuts to ensure that our students never went without. His Media 1 students create the weekly news show, The Pitman Pitch. College and career students identify future pathways, determining what careers and educational routes best suit them. In addition to his 8th grade social studies classroom responsibilities, Mr. DeTizio serves as the PEP advisor, 8th grade advisor, and closing ceremony chair, as well as the cross-country and spring track coach. His determination to engage students in and out of the classroom has paid dividends. Mr. DeTizio serves as a bright spot every single day for our students. He never loses sight of what is important, even in our most challenging times. It is my pleasure to honor Mr. DeTizio as the Pitman Junior Senior High School Teacher of the Year. And on behalf of our school community, I want to congratulate him and all the other winners. Thank you for all you do. All right, Dr. Lombardo is going to do our ESPY.
first start by congratulating all of the Teachers of the Year and all of the SB winners. I think it's a true representation of what our district is all about, to see all the support that you receive by being here tonight, and also the Board of Education taking the time to recognize individuals that sometimes don't always get recognized. When you're in the classroom or you're working with students on the side 2 or 3 at a time, sometimes you forget the importance of your position. And this is just a small reminder of how incredible you all are. And this is my 20th year here at Pitman High School, and every year I become more and more amazed at all the things that I get to hear about the Teachers of the Years and the SBs of the Year, because it just continues to grow with the amount of responsibilities and the duties that you have, and yet all of you come to school every day with a smile, and that's for the students, and that's the really important part. So I wanted to say thank you on behalf of myself. Now it's my honor to please ask Ms. Susie Driscoll to please come forward. Mrs. Driscoll's been a guidance counselor / school counselor for the last 13 years in Pitman High School. When we combined the junior and senior high this year, we weren't quite sure how it was all going to fit together. But what we have found in our counseling department, we are able to mesh all 3 counselors together in case anybody needs anything. And Mrs. Driscoll, with her expertise and experience, has been able to be a leader in the role of counselor, because we have now been able to get all of the students to recognize all 3 counselors as being there for support. Her knowledge of educational systems excels beyond belief. She not only knows the students personally, but she also is able to help them with guidance in the fields of college selection, workforce, going into the service. Any student that wants to schedule classes or have questions about maybe our virtual high school, Mrs. Driscoll is the person that they go to get the most information. She strives to make sure students are supported in class. She can have someone crying in her office one minute and high-fiving her the next because they got into the University of Pennsylvania. That's the job of a counselor. And to be able to kind of direct your emotions in that way is often difficult, but Mrs. Driscoll does it with professionalism every single day. I just wanted to read one little part of what was written for her to be selected for this. Ms. Driscoll strives to make sure students are supported in class, and the decisions that they make for their education are not only acknowledged and recognized, but also celebrated. Considering her exceptional contributions to the school community, Mrs. Driscoll is a true professional in every way. And for that, we thank you for being selected as SB of the Year. Thank you.
So we'd like to take a brief recess so we can take pictures and congratulate all of our winners. And we'll get restarted in about 10 minutes. It's a big group, so.
Our Teachers of the Years and our SBs can come up to the front here. We very much appreciate
going to bring us to our first public comment. The Pitman Public School Board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. This is the first of 2 public comments we will have tonight. The first public comment is on agenda items only. This is a public comment, not a dialogue between the board and the public. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and it is your opportunity to comment or ask questions. In accordance with Board Policy Number 0167, we ask that you state your name, municipality of residence, and group affiliation if applicable. To be recognized to speak, please stand behind the podium located to my left and speak clearly into the microphone. Seeing no one. Mr. Crispin, do we have any correspondence?
I do not.
That's going to bring us to our meeting minutes. I will now move to accept a motion for the minutes of the Pitman Board of Education as held on the dates listed below or approved as printed and reading dispensed with. May I have a second?
Second, Papalardo.
All in favor? Aye. Any abstentions? Any objections? Great. Okay, that's going to take us to our president's report. So first I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Pote regarding our student project.
Yes, so Becca and I have been talking about having, it was her idea to do a mental health day event for like the week before finals. We talked about doing it on a Saturday, but we might revisit a date, so we will keep you posted on that. Like maybe an evening before.
Okay, sounds good. And anything we can do as board members, you can put us to work. This is probably one of the few times we can volunteer, so you just let us know where you want us to be. We did temporary tattoos in an event. It was just okay. It wasn't so great at that, so maybe not that, but Sarah, Mrs. Bolt was pretty good.
And then Mabel's very good at the temporary
Yes,
tattoos.
it's Mrs. Carroll.
And then Mabel would love to come and help, so
Okay.
that might be a thing.
Yeah, wherever you can use them. All right, that's going to take us over to our CSA evaluation, Mrs. Papalardo.
We're still in the process.
Okay.
Mr. Crispin and I just talked a few minutes ago, and we're gonna get it rolling. And once his side is done, then we'll do our side.
All right, sounds great. It's going to take us to our referendum, Mrs. Bolton.
All right, so referendum is still rolling ahead. We are doing what we can. It has been a lot of work working with the architects and the engineers. So what we're trying to, at our last board meeting, we went over what we as a board felt needed to be done. So right now we're in the process of just deciding exactly what we want to do. We really want to make sure, again, that we're taking all the taxpayers' money, not all their money. We're taking what money we collect in taxes. We just want to make sure that we are making it go as far as it can. So right now, we're just kind of talking with some of the architects about different programs that are out there that maybe can cut some of our bills, or there's grants out there. Any extra money that we can get to help us get some projects done without, we just want to be good stewards of all of the tax money that comes in, because we do recognize that we do have some big projects that need to be done, but in a perfect scenario, we don't want to tax the people too hard. So we're really just trying to be good stewards. That's all the best way that we can put it is to just say we really want to look over all the projects, make sure things need to be done. We did bring the architects in and really questioned them on everything, just again to make sure that we need what we need and we do things correctly the first time this around. So that's where we're at.
And I thank you, Mrs. Bolton. Mrs. Bolton has taken this and run with it. It's a lot of back and forth and follow-up questions, and I can assure members of the public that Mrs. Bolton is going to squeeze every drop out of every penny. So we really appreciate her due diligence. Yes. So we have some certified Board of Education members. So the certification process from the NJSBA requires board members to create or to complete a number of different items. For new board members, it's 10 credits. For certified board members that are in their second term, it's 20 credits. County meetings, annual workshops, the NJSBA delegate assembly, statewide or regional leadership opportunities or professional development. And so I want to congratulate again Mr. Grossman. He will be a certified new board member that is recognized at our May countywide meeting. And Mrs. Papalardo is a certified Board of Education member. And I'll be recognized as well. So we will all be there. And if you guys are free to join us for our regular scheduled county meeting in May, we'd love to take a group picture. The NJSBA is, just to add a little bit of context, it is required by statute that we join the New Jersey School Board Association and participate in that. And our dues are $10,173. And so I think it's really important for us as board members to make sure that we get every penny worth. And so these training opportunities that are provided to us that don't require a cost, like the workshop, we should really make sure that we are using them to their fullest advantage and trying to come out ahead on that dollar amount. And also on March 16th, Mrs. Papalardo and I attended a regional leadership conference at Salem County College. It was very informative. It was on a Saturday morning. It's tough for us to get things in South Jersey, so we wanted to make sure we took advantage of that opportunity so that they'll kind of look this way in the future. In the past month, we also had the privilege of hosting the New Jersey School Board Association's Gloucester County 8th grade dialogue. Our student that was selected was Caitlin Totoro. She did a really wonderful job representing Pitman Public Schools, and it was really great to see the kids. And, oh, Michaela. I know the family, so I just immediately inserted the wrong name. Yes, I'm sorry, thank you. Michaela Totoro. On the 27th of March, I met with our county assessor's office. I met with Mr. Craig Black and Jeff Taylor. They sat down with us. We looked over the equalization valuation table. We discussed it kind of at length. I requested some supplemental information from them via email as well. So there is an item that's utilized. It's by statute which ones get thrown out. It's called non-usable sales that help them adjust that equalization valuation table. So I had requested those so we can kind of take a peek and see if we can get a better understanding as to what is impacting this large increase in equalization valuation that we're seeing a disproportionate impact in both Gloucester County and in South Jersey. So just kind of continuing to fact find and gather additional information. I really appreciate them taking the time, the second year in a row that they've sat down with me and entertained all of my questions and helped further educate me about the disparity between how Gloucester County runs their countywide assessment process compared to the other 19 counties. There is Monmouth County that has their own countywide program, but it does not operate like ours. So we're kind of held to the highest standard in terms of reassessment. And there's some, I know I've said this quite a few times, but there's some municipalities in the state that have a single digit real to assessed value and have not been reassessed in decades. So when we look at districts within Gloucester County that have been reassessed, we see these large jumps in their equalization valuation. And those districts that have not been reassessed in decades don't have that same opportunity provided to them. So I think that that is something go forward from a legislative advocacy point that we really want to continue to make sure folks are aware of and focus on. On April 10th, we had the New Jersey Assembly budget hearing with the Department of Education. I was able to attend and hear our acting commissioner provide some greater detail and information about this year's budget. I also was able to listen in on WHYY. Governor Murphy has a call that he does monthly and he answers questions. I submitted a funding formula question. I didn't get picked. But of course not. I know. I learned you can call in though, so maybe next month. You think?
Yeah.
Maybe so. But someone did submit a formula
Doesn't
question.
mean she's not gonna try.
I'm just going to give it a go. So he shared some feedback about where he thought the funding formula process was at and on districts that needed to cut funds. And admittedly, it was a little disheartening. I felt like maybe there was a little lack of insight about districts like ours that have made some really tough fiscal decisions and had, they use the word right size a lot, right size the district, and it really doesn't, we know, take into account from an educational adequacy report perspective the ongoing facility needs that we have, the rising costs, they're just not represented in the budget formula. So Governor Murphy, his comment was that the Lord helps those who help themselves, and so we will continue to do so. We will continue to advocate for our district and make sure that we are doing our very best to help ourselves have a seat at that table. On April 16th, we had the Senate budget hearing. I just want to thank Senator Berzicelli. For any members of the public that are interested in seeing it, I believe I sent it to the board members. You can go onto the New Jersey Legislature page and find the Senate hearing, the archived proceedings. And if you fast forward to, you can listen to the whole thing if you'd like, it's about 4 hours. But if you'd like to fast forward, it's about the 1 hour and 57-minute mark. Senator Berzicelli did speak to the challenges that Pitman has had. He's done a really nice job continuing to advocate for us. He's been a really great partner. We touch base with his office about once a week. So I'm hopeful that we will see some level of relief. And then we have some other areas that we're kind of pursuing in an effort to mitigate some of the loss. Last month, I also spoke to the NJSBA government relations rep, an assembly policy and finance staff member, Mr. Crispin joined me for that one as well, and a couple other individuals just trying to kind of gather more information. Next week, Mr. Crispin and I have a meeting with the leadership at the Department of Education. There's kind of a laundry list of items that we have for them that we're looking for some guidance on. We'd love their suggestions or feedback about how we should best navigate and build this budget. And so, I'm hopeful that they'll have some fresh ideas for us. I do want to thank Mr. Crispin, Mr. Morris, Mrs. Adio, and Mrs. Streeter. They've answered a lot of questions for me this week as we're trying to kind of continue to fact find from the district perspective so that we have a good understanding and, exact dollar amount that we can speak to in our meeting with the Department of Education. As always, if any of the members of the board have any questions about the legislative advocacy efforts or concerns as we participate in this process, I can't represent that I'm speaking on behalf of the entire board if that's not accurate. I know you guys continue to tell me it's fine and you're on board, but if that ever changes, reach out and please make sure that, you catch me and let me know if there's something that we're communicating from the advocacy perspective that you're not comfortable with. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Crispin.
All right. A couple items here. First of all, the security drills are there for anyone who would like to take a look at those for the month. First I'm going to have is the 24-25 budget. As April indicated, obviously we are experiencing some challenges relative to the lack of state funding that we received this year and the impact it's going to have on our ability to balance a budget, the impact it's going to have on staffing. Just to highlight the fact that we do have our public hearing on May 1st, so I'll be going to a lot more detail at that particular time regarding the impact. I've had the opportunity to share with our staff the anticipated impact it will have on our staffing for next year, the loss of positions. We are meeting tomorrow with the administrative group to kind of finalize. When we submitted the original budget to the county, it was just kind of representation of just the positions that would be impacted. Now we need to talk and take a more closer look at the people who are going to be impacted. So we'll be doing that tomorrow administratively. We'll be finalizing that list. We'll be sharing that information with the staff that are impacted by those reductions so that they have an understanding where they stand. And then we'll be prepared to answer any questions that anybody may have at the May 1st meeting. Obviously, we're hopeful and optimistic that there'll be some additional funding where we'll be able to bring back some of those positions, but we may not know that for some time. I put down the use of Kindle in Wall schools. It's just reminding everyone that we are still moving forward with the full leasing of the Kindle school to Washington Township. Elk Township will continue to lease the areas at Wall School, that annex side of the building, for their preschool program. As a matter of fact, Washington Township came back today to take a look at Wall School. They actually need more room than what they're going to be able to get from Kindle. Walls has some limitations that Kindle does not have relative to bathrooms, and bathrooms are big for preschool. So we're not sure if they're going to be able to utilize the space. They need 5 classrooms, kind of looking at that main floor. But as I said, just because of the way Walls has been a little bit reconfigured, we're not sure we'll be able to use that space, but that's a possibility. Also want to mention that we have a couple people who are interested in potentially using Wall School over the summer for some summer programs. We're in the process of evaluating that, making sure it's not going to kind of be in competition with some of our programs. But it's really hard to say no when there's people that want to rent your buildings and they're willing to pay for it, and we could certainly use the revenue from that. Projects under consideration. I've been mentioning this anytime I've had the opportunity to meet with staff. I just want to remind everyone we are still moving forward with some projects. One of the projects that we're working on right now is our high school auditorium here. Aaron Hickman, who happens to be over here with our tech staff, has done a great job as our auditorium manager this year in trying to find some areas where we've kind of been a little lax in terms of addressing lighting and sound are 2 of those major areas. He's done a really nice job of just in a very small way upgrading those areas. We're going to continue to find ways in which we can continue to make those improvements. But I want to highlight the fact that we do have some what I call one-time funding that's still available. We received a significant amount of funding from the federal government through COVID. That money is still sitting there, a little bit of that, and we have to spend that money by the end of September of next year. So we will be looking to do that. The auditorium is one of those projects we will be looking at. This library here is another one that we're planning for. So I'm always concerned that on one side we have a very tight budget, and we do, and it's impacting staff. But on the other side, we have one-time funding that's not a good revenue source for staffing because it goes away. So that's why we're focusing on areas in which we have needs, and the one-time funding would help to support that. So this area here, again, just from a cosmetic perspective, the auditorium, and maybe a couple other projects here and there that we might be looking to consider. High school schedule is something we're continuing to talk about. We haven't really dug deep into it yet. It is a big and very important issue that we will be working on as we move into the spring. We've talked about it before. We have an 8-period day that's worked very well for us for the transitional year, but the high school has a really, really, really strong need to get back to a 9-period day so they can increase the number of electives that students can take. They need those periods in order to meet their graduation requirements. But on the other hand, at the junior high level, it's hard. The 8-period day is very sufficient for the junior high, and to be able to get them to 9, there's going to be staffing that's going to be needed. There's going to be rooms that are going to be needed. So how do we make all this work? But we will be working on that. We're optimistic that we're going to find a solution. And it really is just going to be a matter of getting all the information in, dump it into the system, tell it to create a 9-period day, see what we got, and see if we can work with that. We're also holding off a little bit to make sure we know 100% what the staffing is. It's hard to do a schedule over here if you don't know what your staff is, and we know we're going to be a little bit of limbo until we know for sure whether there's going to be additional funding that's going to be provided. And another one of those one-time resources, I know we had the meeting today in which our staff was having a conversation about as we look to purchase new math resources for our elementary grades. It's very, very important. It drives our instruction at that level, something we haven't done for some time. And just want to know that, again, the funding is coming from our ESSER federal funds. There will be the questions, how can we afford to buy a new math program, and we can't afford our teachers, but they're coming from different revenue sources. So we will be looking forward to maybe having a recommendation sometime soon from that committee for that purchase. More to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I will turn it over to our student representative.
Cool. Thank you. Starting this month, I'll have reports for all schools in the district, not just the junior and senior high school. And with that being said, here are the PES highlights from this month. The first elementary maskers program is up and running, led by Sam Grossman, a former PHS student. Auditions have been held for Alice in Wonderland Junior performance. There are 2 show nights, May 16th and May 17th. Our 5th grade safety program just started this week. 38 5th graders applied and earned their safety belts based on the application criteria. They started their posts on April 11th and are led by Miss Janine Morrison. We are excited for the 5th grade to continue this long-standing tradition at the elementary level. The much-anticipated color run is scheduled for May 31st on Davis Field. This HSA-led event has been a huge hit the past 2 years and fun for the whole community. The PJSHS art classes have attended and competed in this year's Teen Arts Festival, Apple Farm, with some art pieces moving on to states and the choir pieces awaiting decisions. Congratulations to all the art students who shared their work. Baseball, softball, golf, and track and field have begun. The Panthers cheer on all the team's endeavors and wish them all luck in their continuing seasons. Students have much to look forward to in the upcoming month as the upperclassmen are getting ready for the upcoming prom on May 16th with an Enchanted Forest theme, along with the seniors who are gearing up to go on the senior trip in late April. Lastly, to update the board and the public, I have furthered my student representative project with the aspirations of hosting a mental health event for all students. I currently have the date for finals, which will help me plan around that time accordingly. I plan on creating activities and reaching out to organizations that would help students decompress as they move forward into exams, or, for those in the district not taking finals, simply need an afternoon to relax. I'll update once again once I have more concrete plans.
Thank you. And we have to thank our student representative, Becca. She's our inaugural runner to student project. So she's going to give us a postmortem at the end of the year and let us know. And much like the rest of the budget, it's extremely modest, and she's really going to stretch it. So we appreciate that. All right, we don't have a data ad hoc committee meeting update. That committee meets twice a year, just so members of the public are aware, typically in the fall and spring. This year, the math curriculum has been a kind of an ongoing piece of information that's been bounced back to the committee, so there's been a lot of communication that way, so we've not necessarily needed a second committee meeting, but that's probably something we should put on our radar for getting regularly scheduled so that we have it designated to 2 certain months and we're all on the same page as we kind of get this guy going again. All right, so that's going to turn us over to Finance and Facilities. I'm going to turn it over to Committee Chairman, Mr. Grossman.
Thank you. The Finance and Facilities Committee met via Zoom call on Wednesday, April the 10th, 3:30 p.m. In attendance along with myself were Mr. Crispin, Board President April Miller, and Sarah Bolton. The meeting lasted approximately 45 minutes. We discussed the agenda items as sent out to all of us. Item number 5 is an event services agreement. The vote is retroactive with Rowan University for use of their baseball field for our opening day game against Glassboro High School. Item number 11 is our vote for the payroll schedule for next school year. Form is also attached in the drive for everyone to see. It's usually out for the public too somewhere. Last year we printed it. It's on the website. And item number 12 is our tuition rates for next year's school year as well. And the rest of the items were standard service contracts, software, transportation agreements, along with our regular bills and board reports. And furthermore, we discussed the referendum status, which has been covered by Sarah and Mr. Crispin in their reports. The engineers, the architects, and the energy specialists assure us that we're on time, and details will be forthcoming. And then we discussed the projects Mr. Crispin discussed in the auditorium and the library here. We do have furniture at Kindle that might be able to be utilized here, and some fresh coats of paint would be beneficial. That concludes my report, and with that, I'll move. We now have 16 items on the agenda. I move items 1 through 16 for approval.
And a second?
Second Bolton.
Any discussion? I will say that green color getting painted is
Yep.
something that gets mentioned often.
I think we should do the whole thing lime green.
It's a really,
Not happening.
Happening.
we should do a meeting in the reverse one time so
Yeah.
people can see how pretty
Like
it
a
is.
green screen.
Comment on it, so.
Film.
All right, Mr. Crispin, call vote.
Mrs. Bolden?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mrs. Higby Iona?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mrs. Pappalardo?
Yes.
And Mrs. Miller?
Yes. Okay. Motion's passed. Let's move on to curriculum and instruction. I'm going to turn it over to committee chairwoman, Mrs. Farrell.
Sure. The Curriculum and Instruction Committee met on Wednesday, April 10th, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. In attendance were Mr. Crispin, Mrs. Moody, Mrs. Miller, Mrs. Pappalardo, and myself. We briefly discussed the items that we will be approving on tonight's agenda. Item number 7 is the revised calendar. One thing you'll find on the revised calendar for the upcoming school year is that it will reflect our early dismissal days for parent-teacher conferences at Memorial and PES. I know people will enjoy seeing that on there so they can mark it on their calendars. Non-agenda items discussed included the update on the new math curriculum. Like we said, the staff will be making their decisions soon. We briefly talked about the high-impact tutoring cycles and the status of the school performance reports. And our meeting was pretty brief. That's about it. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve items 2 through 22 as written.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Crispin.
Mrs. Bolden?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mrs. Higby Iona?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mrs. Pappalardo?
Yes.
And Mrs. Miller?
Yes. Okay, this is going to take us to communication policy. I'll turn it over to committee chairwoman, Mrs. Higby Iona. I'll get there.
The Communication and Policy Committee met on April 8th at 4:30 p.m. In attendance were board members, Mrs. Farrell, Mrs. Pope, myself, and Superintendent Mr. Crispin. The committee discussed its ongoing review of the board policies. This month, the committee reviewed the policies governing the administration. When the need to revise a policy is agreed on, the revised policy language will be placed on the agenda for comment through the normal procedure. We don't have an agreed on revised policy to offer yet. So with that, I will move to approve item 1 as written, which is the second reading of the policies we reviewed last month.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. All right, very good. That will bring us to a vote, please.
Okay, Mrs. Bolden?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mrs. Higby Iona?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mrs. Pappalardo?
Yes.
And Mrs. Miller?
Yes. And I do want to thank the policy committee. They're working diligently to move through all of our policies. It's a really large undertaking, but they want to make sure that they mirror the most recent language that had been board approved over the years. And as we've moved to a digital platform for our records, you know, there's always the opportunity to make sure everything matches and is up to date. And I know it's a really large undertaking, so I appreciate the committee's work. All right, that's going to bring us to our second public hearing. This is a public comment. Please state your name, municipality of residence, and group affiliation if applicable, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you'd like to be recognized to speak, please come stand at the podium to my left. Okay, seeing no one. That's going to take us to old business. Anything for old business? New business?
I'm just going to say, I'm going to highlight a great junior high jazz concert. I'm not sure if anybody went last night. Unbelievable. I mean, it's amazing to see the talent level for those kids and to think how good they're going to be as they continue to move forward. So,
We are very fortunate in our music
Unbelievable,
department.
unbelievable.
Just such talent across the board and such great
I know
leadership.
they were just recognized. I think they won, I forget the exact award, and Sarah had shared with us. Yeah,
the
really,
NAM.
really worthy. So, good stuff.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the next Board of Education meeting will be May 1st, and it will be scheduled in the Junior Senior High Media Center for the budget. All right, thank you so much.